Welcome, everybody, to a special edition of All In with Art Stapleton, a New York Giants podcast brought to you by NorthJersey.com and The Record. We are here in lovely West Palm Beach, Florida at the Breakers, and this is the final day of your NFL annual meeting. So technically day 2 for All In, day 3 for the league, and you can start feeling the hype for the draft. We're 3 weeks away. And there's a lot going on. This morning, we were early risers here for the NFC Coaches Breakfast, and that included the table with Brian Daboll. And Dave's gave us, I think it was probably about a half hour, I guess. I guess he was there through 8:15. Talked a variety of subjects, a lot of talk about the quarterbacks. We'll get into that, and a couple things that are going on as far as the league. Tush Push has been tabled, so it has not been eliminated as of yet, and that was really the big one today. Both teams will end up getting a possession in overtime, and that's the 10-minute overtime. That has not altered the time frame for overtime, but that's another rule that's come down the pike. Get into that once the season rolls around. Nothing else really earth-shattering. So let's get right to Daboll. And, some of the things that I've heard, I've talked to people. Today was a big Travis Hunter day. It sounds like, Travis Hunter. And the big question here at the draft, and I've talked to several people in terms of what the Giants would do. And, you spend time here and you talk to people. I've talked to Adam Schefter and people who cover the Browns, people who cover the Titans, and you try to get a feel for what everyone's thinking. And the question that everyone is asking regarding the Giants is, if Cam Ward goes number 1 and Abdul Carter goes number 2 to the Browns, what will the Giants do? Will the Giants take Shedeur Sanders? Or will the Giants take Travis Hunter? And I think that's a legitimate question that no one seems to have an answer for. And that includes even the most plugged-in sources in this league. I think there's still a possibility that the Giants go quarterback. I think there is still a possibility that they go Travis Hunter. Now, you could say what you want about Shedeur Sanders and where he stands as far as a prospect goes. And is he an elite-level prospect? I've heard, and I've told you on here, the highest floor mentioned with Shedeur Sanders. So right now, if no other quarterback improves and Shedeur stays the same, that he would be the best quarterback in this class. But in terms of his traits, he has traits that don't wow you. You're not wowed by accuracy or toughness or ability to play within the pocket. That's not things that wow scouts right now. What wow scouts is what Cam Ward can do. You throw a ball 70 yards, and you just watch him physically, and he looks like a much more modern-day NFL presence at quarterback. Does that mean that Shedeur Sanders can't play? No. But I do find it funny that, everybody wants to talk about Jackson Dart when the most physically gifted quarterback, or at least prospect that plays quarterback right now, is probably Jalen Milroe, outside of Cam Ward. Jalen Milroe as a runner is unbelievable. Now, he needs to develop as a passer, and that's something that needs to come in time. So that's why the other day in my mock draft, yesterday, I had Jalen Milroe at 34 with the Giants. Now, I took Abdul Carter because Travis Hunter went number 2 to the Browns. I'm sorry. I went Carter over Hunter. Sanders went number 2 to the Browns. So, at this point, and I want to relay this because I was the one who asked Brian Daboll the question today about that kind of triggered this Travis Hunter thing. And now you see it everywhere. But my question was regarding Troy Brown. And if you remember the name and you go back a little bit, the Patriots had a wide receiver named Troy Brown, good player, was also a special teamer. He was a returner. By year 10 in his career, he ended up getting spot duty on defense, and he ended up playing nickel corner and becoming a really good nickel corner for the Patriots. And Troy Brown is now on the Giants coaching staff. Troy Brown is an offensive assistant as part of the minority fellowship through the league with the Giants. He's going to be here the entire season. And Daboll, when he was a wide receivers coach in New England, Troy Brown was a wide receiver in that room and a veteran. So Daboll today talked a lot about, and I had heard through my sources that, talk to Daboll about Troy Brown. It's an interesting connection because of Travis Hunter. If the Giants were to draft Travis Hunter, they have a player on the coaching staff who did, maybe not to the extent that Travis Hunter wants to do, but did play both ways in the NFL. So that's something that I asked Brian Daboll about, and he gushed over Troy Brown. He mentioned Troy Brown and the late David Patton as two receivers that were veterans in that room in New England when he coached wide receivers, that really helped him as a coach, as a young coach, kind of develop at the NFL level, position coach. And so now Troy Brown is now with the Giants. So we also asked about Travis Hunter, and Daboll was very complimentary of Travis Hunter as far as he could possibly go. He said, what he's done is remarkable, and playing, I think it's over 800 snaps on defense and offense. Said he's watched every clip, every play that Travis Hunter has had in the NFL, and he's done that with all the quarterbacks. Said he actually did that with Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. Said 7,500 pass plays in Russell Wilson's career, and Daboll's watched every one of them. So Daboll's a film junkie in this evaluation period. So he's breaking it down, and it's made a lot easier nowadays than it was, 10 years ago, being able to just digitally find these plays and go through them very quickly. So is Travis Hunter an option? Well, Brian Daboll's not going to give away his takes on Hunter or on Shedeur Sanders. What I will say is Daboll made it very clear, and you know this if you've been listening to All In or you've been reading our content on NorthJersey.com and in the print editions of the Record, Daboll has not been doing pro days. And it's something that he doesn't like to do. He'd rather do private workouts. Now, some of you will say, well, last year he was at LSU's pro day and he was at Washington's pro day. Well, he was at LSU's pro day because Joe Shane told us yesterday. It didn't hurt that Malik Neighbors was there, but in terms of Jaden Daniels, since the Giants were not in the top two picks at the time, Jaden Daniels wasn't going to do a private workout for a team that was outside of the top two because he believed he was going in the top two. So if the Giants wanted to get Jaden Daniels, they had to go to pro day, which they did. And they ended up seeing Malik Neighbors as well, and that also helped. Now, Jaden Daniels was Brian Daboll's favorite quarterback last year, ahead of Caleb Williams. Then it was Drake May. So that's where they're at. But we all know the story. They couldn't get up to 3, so they went without a quarterback in the draft last year. So fast forward to now. This is where the Giants are at. They are setting up their local pro day, which is on Thursday. Then a contingent will head out to Boulder for Friday to see Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter. Now, I'm not sure how much Travis Hunter will be doing. Shedeur Sanders is expected to work out. We'll see what kind of plan they put together. That'll bring me to the next part, and that's Daboll's evaluation process. And you've heard Joe Shane praise it a lot. The Giants really, really like the way Daboll goes through his evaluation process for quarterbacks. And we saw a little bit of that on Hard Knocks last year at the Combine when he put Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams and Drake May through those meetings in the suite at Lucas Oil Stadium, and talked to Daboll a little bit about that. And, he made the point, it goes back to 2011, which was the Cam Newton draft. Brian Daboll was the offensive coordinator in Miami for the late Tony Sparano. And they asked Daboll to put together a process to evaluate quarterbacks in the draft. So they hammered out a plan for private workouts. And it's evolved since then, but it's essentially stayed the same thing. Now, there may be other teams that do it this way, but they like the way Daboll does it. And it worked, obviously, in Buffalo with the reigning MVP, Josh Allen, back in 2018. Daboll and Shane were a big part of Brandon Beane's and Sean McDermott's plan to draft Josh Allen, which they did at number 7 overall, and the rest is history for the Bills and their star quarterback. Now, what does Daboll's plan entail? Well, first off, Daboll puts together a test for all of his quarterback prospects that they are going to have private workouts with. Now, the Giants hold this information like it's, state secrets. So Daboll wouldn't even confirm who they've had private workouts with. But I can tell you, one with Cam Ward was expected. Now, I don't know if that's changed since if he believes he's going number 1. Maybe they didn't have one. Maybe they did. There's going to be one with Shedeur Sanders. Jackson Dart, I believe, has already had his with the Giants. And I would assume that they'll do one with Jalen Milroe. I don't know. Tyler Shuck had his pro day last week. Wouldn't surprise me if they have a workout with him. And then after that, I'm not so sure who comes with a private workout. But that's kind of where we're at with that. So what Daboll does is he puts together a test of formations, questions regarding the offense, and he gets in contact with the player via Zoom, or it used to be via phone. And that quarterback gets sent the test before they have the workout and sends that test back. So at least Daboll can see the test is really geared towards how he wants to set up the private workout. And they want that to be a mystery. And the difference between the pro day and the private workout is that the pro day is all scripted by the player and his coach, whether it's a private coach or coaches at campus through the college. For the workouts, those are scripted entirely by Daboll and the Giants, or whatever respective team is doing it. So the player cannot necessarily prepare until he goes out there and kind of retains information. So part of that test is to make sure that they have at least some of the answers as to what Daboll is going to ask them to do at the workout. And so they run the workout, they'll go on the board, they'll run through tape, they'll do everything. It's a more expanded, personalized meeting with the prospect. Now, there are other things that are part of that. One of the things is they're trying to get a sense of who this player is, what he can handle, what is his mood. So while Joe Shane's staff pretty much handles the scheduling of the private workouts, the player, the prospect in this case, is asked to set up dinner for whatever contingent is there for the Giants, maybe 3-4 people. Jesse Armstead's been to a bunch. It'll be Joe Shane, Brian Daboll, could be Tim McDonald, could be Shea Tierney, could be Mike Kafka, a bunch of people who are there. And the player is usually asked to make the dinner reservation. So why? Why would you do that? Because that's something that's usually out of the player, a prospect's purview. Things like that are usually done for those prospects. But you want to see how they handle those details. Do they let anything slip? Also, transportation from the airport. Hey, can you help us set up our transportation? Our plane's getting in at this certain time. Can you get us a car service? Here's a number. We'll pay, obviously, but can you orchestrate it? Why? Because they want to see how these guys read and react. It's a quarterback situation. Usually the quarterback is the guy who is a point man in the locker room. You want to see how that comes together. Now, I know some of you are probably looking at it going, really? This is how you figure out if you have a championship quarterback? Well, sometimes that may reveal something that is a bigger issue for that quarterback. If that person's not as attentive as you would expect them to be in meetings, or can't be independent and do something as simple as a reservation, or makes a reservation for 5 instead of 6. Little things like that you don't expect to become a bigger issue, but it certainly could set up a player profile as to what they're thinking and what the player is thinking under these circumstances. So I thought that was all interesting. I wrote a piece on NorthJersey.com. More information on that. Make sure you check it out. But I thought I'd share it here on the final all-in here at the owners' meetings. So I'm trying to think of other things that went down here. It was pretty customary for Shane and then Daboll. And what they've gone through and what we've talked about. Again, Pro Day for Colorado is on Friday. You're going to see representatives from the Giants there. Giants draft meeting, the first draft meeting internally since before the Combine, with their scouts and with their personnel department and coaches, tomorrow, 7 a.m. So the Giants are leaving here tonight, flying back to New Jersey, and then they will be in the office 7 a.m. Wednesday morning to be able to start really putting together their draft board. So when we hear them tell you it's too early, it's too early. It's too early because they literally haven't put their draft board together. Now, does Brian Daboll have a favorite quarterback who thinks, I'd love to get him at 3? Like, if he loves Shedeur Sanders, he's already fallen in love. He's not going to fall in love 3 weeks from now. But for the most part, they're still putting together their board. And, it's funny. I love the movie Miracle. So you think, if you've watched the movie Miracle before, and when they have the U.S. Olympic, they were supposed to have the event to kind of put together the team after the festival for a week. They were all supposed to be there, and then they were going to meet as a committee and put together the team. That's what this is. This is the Giants now sitting down tomorrow with their board and saying, okay, what do we like about this guy? I think when you saw last year on Hard Knocks, the Daboll questions from Joe Shane about, would you trade up for Drake May? Would you trade up for Jaden Daniels? Those things are handled now in the final 3 weeks before the draft. And a little bit more of a timeline for the Giants. April 21st, the Monday of draft week, is the start of the offseason program. And that's when the players, voluntary of course, are reporting back to 1925 Giants Drive. And they'll kick off year 4 of Daboll and Shane, and we'll see 3 days later if they're adding yet another quarterback to this quarterback room with Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston and Tommy DeVito, and then what that will mean moving forward. So that's what we got. I'm pretty tapped out here down at the owners' meetings. A lot of interesting stuff. Tried to share as much as I could the last 2 days with you on All In. And we appreciate you guys watching and listening. Keep getting our numbers up. Like I said, we're all in with you guys, and we appreciate you being all in with our coverage. So probably be back next week to do an All In. If there's breaking news between now and then, Paul Wood and I will pop back on and we'll do an All In from there. So that's where we're at with the palm trees here in West Palm. I will be heading back up home, and catch you next time from good old New York, New Jersey area as the draft gets closer and closer and closer. So for Paul Wood, I'm Art Stapleton. Appreciate you being all in, and we're all in too. We'll catch you on the next show as we get closer to the draft.